Hi, everybody. Happy November, almost December. Hope everyone's got all their shopping done for Thanksgiving and your pies are made or will be made or everything's ready to go. We'll see. Our potato leek soup is ready, so we're good on our end. Um, so this week we are talking about basically talking about subject headings, but I'm putting it in the context of how using the subject headings can help you make your data more consistent. For anybody that is a usual follower of some of the training videos, one of my biggest things for everybody is be consistent when you're doing your cataloging and when you're doing your data entry. It'll make it easier for people to um, find your records. It'll be easier for even you to find your records in-house, and to make sure everything is, it doesn't get confusing with somebody calling something a teacup and saucer and somebody else calling it a teacup saucer, or something silly like that. Um, One of the things that I found, this is something from my old museum, from my old curator, uh, also making things more broadly searchable when you're coming up with names and titles for things. Um, when at my old place, when we began a brand new computerized database, um, we did not use nomenclature. And there was a particular reason because it's not very general public researcher friendly as far as trying to search for something. Um, computers and searching and all that has come a long way since, obviously, because this is 25 years ago. But the normal general person is not going to search for um, container, comma, bucket, or something like that. They're not going to search for that comma thing. They're just going to call something by what it is. Um, they're not going to call, cooking utensils or something like that by a weird name of like spoon, comma, stirring, things like that. So we went with very generic names for things and very making sure to also include very generic overall usage terms and classifications in our hierarchy. We actually, my predecessor created our own thesaurus and authority record for classifications. It's really complex, and for a while it takes a bit to get used to it, but eventually I'm like, this is actually really brilliant. She did a great job. Because something like Connecticut Collections and the collective access platform didn't exist at the time. So the system we were using only allowed you to put like one term in. So we had to go really, really broad. With this, you can put in a ton of terms. So you have a lot more flexibility. So let me go into, where am I? I'm in the sandbox. We'll go into objects. When you're trying to think of let's go into gloves. Here we go. Obviously, we have the title fields. We have the alternate title field, which is really useful. Something like this is actually a pretty good example of saying we're just talking about these as gloves, but it's also been called pair of men's gloves. The part where it gets weird is when you do a listing of things and you try to sort alphabetically. I'm looking for gloves. Let me pull up a list and I'm looking for G for gloves. You're not necessarily going to see this if your main heading or main title is that pair of men's gloves, because it's going to be coming up under P. You may not see it. Um, Having this alternate title thing is great because you can say gloves or pair of men's gloves. Women's shoes, men's shoes, things like that. You have to know what you're looking for in some of those cases. Uh, I see if I have there. I have multiple, I forgot about that. Um, so if you're trying to decide what you want to call it, think more broadly for what you're doing. And if you have certain things that you're like, I'm not sure what to call this or what should be that overall thing. Let me go down to the subjects too. I was going to jump into that. So down here in the subjects field, we've talked about this a little. I would love to see folks using this more because this does transfer to the public portal and you can filter by different subjects and terms that you're using. Um, most people know what Library of Congress subject headings are. When you're opening a book and in that first few pages is all those particular specific terms that are, um, created and approved by the Library of Congress. And that's another part about making sure that things stay consistent and you know what you're looking for. Um, Library of Congress terms are wacky. If you ever look in any of the old books that some people have. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Thank you, Stephanie. There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. Now you should see it. Okay. Um, let me get rid of this for myself here. So going down to subjects here, our subjects link directly to the authorities created by all of these different institutions, like this Library of Congress subject headings, like I was saying in the book. Um, they are, they can be cumbersome. And when you look at them in books, sometimes it gets weird, the way they've arranged them. We don't need to worry about that specifically here because you'll be able to search and sort through and link through. Because a lot of the time, if you're looking up Civil War in your head, you're just like, Civil War, this is what I'm looking for. But it has like a United States dash dash history dash dash. Um, I can't remember what the rest of it is because I always just go Civil War. And you don't want to have to remember all of that whole entire thing. If you're looking it up here, you can just put in Civil War. Don't hit enter. The little gear at the end will start to turn, and there'll be all of these options for you to choose from. Depending on what you're looking for, sometimes you'll start to learn easier search terms that'll find it faster because the list is weird and it is not in alphabetical order. So sometimes you need to start going down the list and seeing what looks the closest. Oh, because it's just normally United States dash dash history dash dash Civil War, comma 1861 to 1865. And because you think about it, it's Library of Congress. They're not just talking about the United States, about the Civil War. They're talking about the entire world. And they're also talking about Civil War as a concept within many different countries and that kind of thing. So it really needs to be specific. You'll see something like this where it has cavalry operations. That's getting even more specific. So you actually want to find one, and I don't know if I've tried this, how well it works. I don't remember. Of putting that in and then backing out of it to just see if it'll give you that Civil War part slightly. You can also get a code from the actual field and put it in as well. It happens if I just hit enter or just save. This is experimenting for you guys because I do it all the time and I can't remember. Yeah, I don't want that cavalry operation. So anyway, that's more Library of Congress. Library of Congress is, like I said, a little bit wacky. And I wanted to more talk about up here about Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus as far as terminology and names and words to use. Um, Library of Congress is more general about the topic of the thing. It would be like clothing, gloves as a concept through time kind of thing. We are talking in the Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus about things that describe the item, like the physical type of item something is. And I pulled up the page and I'm going to put it in the newsletter next month next to this um, office hours recording of what the URL is. So if you go up to the Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus here, and you may think like, we don't really have art or architecture. No, it means like everything objecty. It gives you a good description down here in the page about what it actually is. So if you're looking for something in particular, you can check here and see. Gloves are an easy one. You're obviously going to do that. I'm going to go back to my example from one of the other office hours was I was putting my teddy bear in and I was questioning the title because you think about toys and things like that for children. And you're like, what's the proper name? Obviously, my first thought is I'm calling this a teddy bear. But Stuffed toys is in there. I don't remember what nomenclature calls it. I don't remember. I should have looked that one up. But I wasn't sure what the name thing is. Should I call it stuffed toy and then put the rest of it in, or is teddy bear okay? Um, so when I went back to Getty, they have a lovely search. So I can put that in search and say, oh, yes, that is a term that they use. A little quick tutorial on Getty. You can click on the link here and it'll go to the definition of what that is. It'll give you all of these names and things for other countries, which are fascinating. And the hierarchy of this, Getty is considering this in their hierarchy. Furnishings and equipment, it's a recreational item. Um, I don't know why it doubles. Toys under recreational artifacts, toys by form, as opposed to blocks, as opposed to toy trucks. Soft toys, stuffed toys, and then it finally gets to teddy bears, but teddy bears is an approved name for this thing. When you can click on this little pyramid and it gives you that same hierarchy, and you can also expand these and go in and see what else is included under these things. Um, and sometimes it's really useful if you're close to what you think you want, but not 100% sure. Expanding it is good because you can say, oh, cloth dolls is a term in here. Perfect. I do have a cloth doll. And now I know, like in my title, I could call this cloth doll and it would be, a good way to make it consistent. Um, and then we did that on that one. So you can go all the way up and go toys by form and just kind of seeing the hierarchy of stuff they have in here is really cool. In a like cup and ball toys, pretty sure we all have some sort of cup and ball toy sitting around in the collection from somewhere. And it's interesting to see that it's got, the dashes in between. And it's, not using the ampersand, which never use that in titles. Try not to use that at all if you can, unless it's a company name. That's another thing. Then you get down to like figural toys. You know what I mean? Can't say the word. Jack in the boxes, jumping jacks, tumblers, toys, figural toys. That's flying discs, frisbees. I want to know what other flying discs there are besides frisbees, but that's okay. Sometimes these are just fun to look at. Noah's Arks. Oh, I don't know that one existed because I do have a Noah's Ark toy in my collection at Fairfield, so I'm gonna have to go back and check that now. A lot of optical toys. Probably a lot of us have magic lanterns and kaleidoscopes and stuff like that as well. So it's kind of cool to see all the terminology in there. So back to the original. Now I know that, let me go back to find teddy bears again because I had a thing about that. So in the terms of teddy bears and the other terms that are used, you can get lost looking through all these different things. This is all extra stuff you don't need to see, but it's just kind of fun to see it. Stuffed toy bears, usually with a plush outer material, having an upright body and straight forearms, first appeared in 1903. Just kind of cool stuff to see. But it's under stuffed toys. So that's one of the reasons in my record I put teddy bear because that's going to be a bigger genre of stuff. But I did include stuffed toy in that alternate title just for kicks. And then when I go to the subjects for this, I'm going to put both of those things in. So I know I was talking about something else at the time, which is why this isn't filled in yet. So I can put in teddy bears, and I'm going to put in stuffed toys, and that should come up. When you save it, it'll give you more of an explanation in your system on this. This kind of, I think, links to the other page, which isn't as user-friendly as the regular page. Oh yeah, it goes to the Getty page here if you needed to go back to it. And it's more technically stuff, which is kind of a pain, but I don't use that more thing all that much. I use that other page. It's a little more friendly. So I've got both things in here. Do I want to put toys into? I probably could as an overarching kind of thing. Because of the nature of this item, because teddy bears are such a thing and such a history of it in the country, I am going to put it on Library of Congress headings as well. Paper makers, teddy bears. Keeping in mind too, when you're doing this, I usually search under the singular of something, but most of the approved terms are plural. So I always go easier rather than to search for something specific and search for the plural, even though it usually is. But I'm going to put that in there too. So he counts under that. Something else that's a good one that I was thinking of for this is everybody's got wedding dresses of some sort or another. My museum, when I started, there's a wide range of what they called them. Wedding dresses, wedding gowns was a big one. When I go into Getty and do a new search, um, I've always called them for my database wedding dresses, which is perfectly acceptable. I wanted to make sure that all of my wedding gowns at Fairfield were findable and called the same thing. The subject heading, I can make the same thing, but I wanted the title to be consistent as well. So if I type in wedding gown and search, the first hit you get is wedding dresses. So that's the preferred term for those types of garments. You also see dresses by function, which is interesting. They split this into mode of fashion by function. It's kind of interesting. If you're a giant nerd like me and like looking at this stuff, there you're also going to find bridesmaid dresses. And that's another good one too, because they're calling it bridesmaid dresses, not bridesmaids dresses. And it's those silly little things that'll mess up searches and things. Again, computer searching, Google search, Google style search has changed a lot over the years. You're still going to probably find things if you type in bridesmaids dresses. I think we naturally say that a lot of the time versus just bridesmaid dresses. So it's something like that that's good and have consistent terms in. I don't know if there's any wedding. Let's see what I have for weddings in Sandbox. Design a wedding dress for Eve Warner. I have no idea what the rest of these are. Wedding dress, wedding shoes. So wedding dress in the title, that's fine. You're obviously in the title, not going to say wedding dresses. That'll be something that'll go into the hierarchy or into the subject headings rather. So if I go into my subject headings, I'm going to put in wedding dress. It should pull up wedding dresses. I'm also going to put in dress to get that broader search when I look through the public portal. And this is another one where you're going to go down and find a bunch of things, and it gives you a lot of options that you may not even have thought of for certain things. A lot of times with men's things, it comes in handy. And as you scroll down, I really wish this was in alphabetical order, but it's fine. Dress up costumes are there, which is can come in handy. Skating dresses, if anybody has that. Evening dress, like as a concept. So when you hit something like this in your choices, you don't necessarily want that because this is just the thought about evening dress as like a dress code if you're going to a wedding, something like that. The dress code is evening dress as opposed to casual Friday dress. So that's not something that you're going to want to use for this. That's thinking about the overall. Think of it more of like that overall Library of Congress topic heading. So what you're going to want to look for is something like that, evening dresses, garments. I happen to know there's another one. As you do this more, you'll get more used to the terms that you need. Dresses, garments. Ah, exactly. This is what I want. So I just want dresses as a garment, as a topic for this. And you can click save. One that I literally, this is sad to say, literally started using a couple weeks ago. Sometimes you do want to separate men's clothes versus women's clothes, other than saying woman's suit or men's suit. Sometimes you assume that a dress is going to be a woman's dress. So you just say dress and just differentiate it by saying child's dress or baby's dress or something like that. I have always in the past used children's wear for children's clothes, aside from saying girls dress in the title of something. I've added children's wear as a term, and just honestly, this is terrible, started thinking about using women's wear to differentiate between women's clothing and men's clothing. I have a lot of women's clothing, so I may do like a bulk batch edit to add these to a lot of things. But I honestly don't have another good way of pulling all that stuff together. So I'm adding this as women's wear in this. And you may say, well, obviously wedding dresses are women's, what else you can, but just to pull out how many, someone walks up and says, how many women's clothing pieces do you have in the collection versus children's clothing versus men's clothing kind of thing. Those other terms do exist also. Men's wear is in here and children's wear is in here. It's all one word. So that's where I got thrown off for a really long time trying to remember what the children's one was actually, because that doesn't seem like a real word. So those are there as well if you ever want to differentiate by things like that. And that's something that's good to put into that heading term versus needing it in the title. That title is still going to be wedding dress. Oh, this is a good example of like the nomenclature kind of thing. Not many people just looking to see, I want to see how many wedding dresses Fairfield has. They're not going to search by gown, comma, wedding. They're going to put in wedding dress. I am, however, going to change this to wedding gown for people who might search for wedding gown, because it is a good alternate name for something. Where is that? Thinking about the topic headings in subjects too, as far as like Library of Congress subject headings. Don't necessarily, you could put wedding dress in here. You don't necessarily need it because you've already got it in the other one. But there's one, and I can't remember what it is, so I just have to search for wedding. Let me make this so you can see the long list from here. All kinds of wedding related things, marriage service, wedding family etiquette. Again, all kinds of cool things in here. Wedding costume you could use for that. And you could use that for any of your wedding related things in your collection, whether you have a bridesmaid's dress, a flower bearer dress, something like that. You can just put wedding costume in there and like cover all your bases. There's a ceremony somewhere, weddings. And sometimes if you don't find the term you're looking for, you just kind of have to keep scrolling or look in that main page, like that main Getty page. You can just put weddings to cover that. If you're using Library of Congress, Library of Congress is going to be much more broad than Getty. Then this is also another thing that I found in Fairfield, and it kind of drives me crazy. On our legacy nomenclature, these are all the terms that we had added and all the tags that they just like loosely typed in by hand because there was no overarching authority file to connect these two. Somewhere along the line, somebody decided that a wedding dress was clothing dash outerwear. It is not clothing dash outerwear. It is clothing dash main garment. Outerwear is coats and jackets and capes and things like that. I think I've gotten rid of all of it in my real database, but I wouldn't swear to it. Yeah, sometimes you'll, especially if you migrated from an old system, you're going to have a lot of stuff in like that you're going to want to change. But make sure you're looking it up in other places as opposed to assuming that it's correct. I'm getting rid of that outerwear. That outerwear thing drives me crazy. And as opposed to innerwear, undergarments, that kind of thing. And this is up where Getty's going to have a little bit more of a terminology for that. And it's slightly different. That follows a good format in that legacy stuff that we were using. The format's good. It's just not correct and not intuitive. Trying to think of any other good examples for this too, of trying to find I just thought of something to look up in Fairfield and now I've lost what it was. But anything that you're questioning what to call something. I have a candle holder. Gee, nothing shows up. Is this one word or two? Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let me look it up in Getty and see if this is supposed to be one. Oh, I just had a good one last week too, and now I can't remember it was, that I really wasn't sure. I'm looking it up the way I'm thinking of it and putting this here. Oh, and look at all kinds of candle holders. Okay. They have it as candle holder, one word. Perfect. I'm going to use that because that way I know that this is an approved term. So if I call it candle holder one term and stick by that in my system, it'll find it. And it gives you more description on if you're questioning something of what it should be, which is really useful because I have had that a few times going, I think this is called a this, but I'm not sure. And this will kind of give you a little bit more of a definition for this. Now I'm curious if I search for candle holder 2 or is there anything? It's in the sandbox, so maybe nothing in here. Yeah, nothing in here. Do I have anything in Fairfield? And I'm slightly terrified to see what we put things in as the past. Okay, I have two. One word, great. And I know I have a candelabra. Now I'm going to do search by 2 words and see what it does. Now it's going to come out with a bunch of other things too, because it'll search on those 2 different things. Okay, good job by somebody. We don't have it as 2 words, there only is one. So that's also another good use of Getty to try to see what actually is the proper term for it, or the proper word. Is it one word? Is it 2 words? Things like that. Really wish I could remember that one I had last week that I just looked at. Oh, might have been mantelpiece was one that I think I did ages ago. So not mantelpiece, but mantles fire components. So that's something I wouldn't have thought of. So what I would do for this one, say I have a mantle in my collection. I would not necessarily say mantles fireplace components in my title. I would just say mantle. I would add this in the subject to be able to find it because that is the approved term. You don't need the rest of it, so use your judgment because you can still link to this specific term in your subjects field. I was going to go to the and one thing I know, especially for anybody who is migrated, especially from past perfect, the name and the title fields sometimes ended up in different places. And your name, where it's called title in collective access and Connecticut collections, may have been named somewhere else. A lot of the time, people, when they have migrations, all of their photographs are just named photograph. Not necessarily useful for being able to find something. You can search other things and things will come up, but when you're looking for it, it's not useful, necessarily useful. I have made sometimes, because I put photograph in that subject authority, so I'll be able to pull those out that way, but I've taken photograph usually out of the title or alternate title. Sometimes it may be photograph of a view over the river or something like that, but usually not. Photograph will usually show up in my description. Photograph of several people on the beach, etc., etc. One rule of thumb that we used years ago for a early online digital database was go ahead and give it a photograph or a drawing, something like that, a brief title of what it is. Try not to duplicate it, although that's difficult given the sheer amount of photographs we all have. Just change it by a little bit so you can recognize it. But if I have a photograph now of people on a beach, I'm not just going to say photograph of people on the beach. I'm going to say people on Jennings Beach, something like that. So it gives it more of a, as you go down the list, you're going to be able to pick it out a little bit easier as opposed to having a whole entire list of photographs. One thing I do see in the migrations a lot of the time, even if that photograph showed up as the main title, the alternate title will sometimes have a little bit of a better description of something. So if you can still find it that way, if you can design your display to have both of those things in there to find it, great. Otherwise, go ahead and like flip it. And that way you might be able to find things a little bit easier. I'm just going to search in here. Let me see what Wilton has. So we're in the public portal, and we're going to do some looking through to see what some of the things are that are in here. Not a lot of people have used the subjects yet. Again, encourage people to just get in the habit of throwing those on there. And you don't even have to think of it as a very formal, you need librarian training to assign the subject headings. Just search for terms in the fields under subjects and see what comes up. So in our full results here, we can filter by things up here. So these are all the different things. Departments is going to be, and there's that top heading, which are more the general things that automatically go into your system, like physical object versus still image, things like that. Then these things down in the bottom are pulling from that subjects section of your system. Artist names, subjects, Library of Congress names really says that. So subjects, what if they put in, and you're going to get a count of how many things. Most of the time it ends up being like one or two because we've not used a lot of these yet. African-American cooking, Baptist church buildings, not knowing what this is. I would also put in, if I was doing it as well, I would put in cooking as a general term, assuming that's relevant. I'm guessing it's a cookbook. Maybe not, I don't know. Beer bottles, brewing, congregational churches. That's a good one to put into things. Generally, I would put in, for subjects, you'd go ahead and put in churches, just in general. I do also question that this is under subjects versus Library of Congress names. That's where a lot of things that get confused, and it does in Fairfield quite a bit. Actually, I should go to that. Let me go to me. I go to institutions, and I'm going to Fairfield and looking at my collections. Viewing. Oh, but side note, we're in the midst of getting those featured galleries to work for everybody. Right now, if you have a public gallery, it is coming up under your institutional profile. And we just have to make a couple tweaks for it to show up under this big gallery heading right here and see how that goes. So we're going down. I want to see all of my objects, and I'm going to look under classification, artist name, subjects. Let's look what we have for subjects. Thanks, it's beaches. So these are all, yep, there should be a beach somewhere in the photo. So far, so good. One of the things that I know, so I'm going to get rid of beaches and I'm going to look at classification. And that's where you're pulling Getty is pulling into classification. Because if we called it Getty Art and Architecture Thesaurus, general researchers and users wouldn't know what that means. So we're doing that as classification as the type of object. One of the things you don't want to do, or you want to differentiate between the type of object that you're using from Getty versus the topic of the thing that you'd be using with Library of Congress. So butter molds, buttons, information. I know previously some of the things in ours went and there were like floods and flooding. We have a lot of photos of that. And they put floods in Getty. And this is where it gets very fussy. So you don't have a flood. Your topic that you're showing is floods. So your classification type is not going to be floods. It's going to be that floods is going to go into Library of Congress. I need to have a workshop on this because I know talking about it, it's like, what's the difference? There's enough of a difference between type of object and the topic of the object is where you want to look. So far, these that are on our public one are good, and I'm not saying that like, oh, we're really cool. It just means that my interns have done a good job on the stuff that I haven't checked yet. Um, Elementary school buildings, I wouldn't really put that in a classification because I don't have an elementary school building that can go under Library of Congress. That those are probably, oh, let me look at them. That's going to be probably photographs. Yeah, so I wouldn't put under classification that this is a library school building. This is a photograph. We don't have a library school building in our collection. So stuff like that you need to look out for. Um, and I know that one of my interns started doing this and I caught her pretty quick. So there are not a ton of them in here now. I'm gonna have to go back and fix these. Um, in general, researchers aren't going to necessarily know that or think that. They're just going to look and be like, oh, school buildings, cool, let me go look at this. And when you go into the record for that item, all of your classifications and things show up down here. So yeah, you can see it. So it's not, classification should be photographs and should be the type of photographs. And your subjects down here are going to be elementary schools, Fairfields. Couple of these are questionable. School buildings are fine. Trees are fine because they show up. Um, so you kind of get more of a feel. So if you go in and are looking up elementary schools from the subjects, this is now going to go back and search all of the database. So we're kind of, anytime you hit one of those, you're going to go outside of your institution that you're in, which is good to warn your users about, especially if you're linking from your page. You're going to see a lot of Fairfield stuff because, again, not many other people have been using these yet. I'd love to see more people do it because if you're looking for elementary schools, wouldn't you want to see like all the elementary schools in the state and then you can kind of go down by there. Um, so that's another way to think about those. There is a glossary guide page in the manual for all of those subjects um, and to what to use when and what are used for which. Yeah, actually, go back to the sandbox. Actually, I'll go back to Fairfield. Because a lot of the times, I don't know if it'll be in here. Nomenclature has something like candle holders and things as a technology and equipment lighting devices is like the nomenclature term. How many people are literally going to search lighting devices? They're not. You know, in theory, in the record somewhere, somebody would probably call this a candlestick. And it would be found, but no one's going to call these lighting devices outside of museum worlds. Even I wouldn't have ever thought, and I suddenly started looking through our old little catalog cards and like, lighting device. Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. It's probably more that candelabra's got it in there somewhere. As a legacy nomenclature. I'm just curious now. Lighting device. Yep. It's a candelabra. It holds candles. Okay, lighting device, fine. Um, I mean, that's kind of general gist of all of that. It's a partial using those subject options to give your items more of a description and more of a classification to pull things together, but also use it for being able to be more consistent with your own terminology and with things like your titles. I think that's the summary of the whole thing. There's other things here as well. The glossary in the manual kind of goes over what you can use those for. Use as many or as few as you want. It's always good to have one or two in here. Like just having that candelabras thing, I'm pretty happy about that. Do I want to put Library of Congress like candle holders in there? Sure. It's going to be found one way or another, just even having that Getty part in there. Oh, a note about looking over this whole part of it, a note about the geographic names. Getty's geographic names. S Sometimes the your town won't jump in here. It's only a few that I found, and it's mostly down by me in Fairfield. Um, i- if I start typing in Fairfield, let's see. Um, Sorry. I was trying to find the pause because my battery is getting low and I couldn't find the pause, so I'm just diving off screen for a second. Um, so when you pull up Fairfield, it does like the entire world. And as you go down, it's very much going down by like continent, country, region, all this kind of stuff. Um, and sometimes your town's not in there. So if it doesn't come up, you can go to the main page, which is listed in that page in the manual of where that home page is to go look. And you can find your code. It's like a 8-digit numerical code, I think, and just copy paste into that section and your town will come up. I have it on like a little like one of the like post-it computer things on your home screen. I have me listed Southport, somebody else nearby to me, the other end of the state doesn't have it. Because the way this lists, it takes forever to go through to try to find Fairfield, Connecticut, United States, inhabited places and all that. You're here forever. Um, it's fascinating. I think I can get to it through Getty up here. Oh yeah, Getty Thesaurus of Geographic Names. You can get to it here. This is also kind of sometimes hard to search because of the way it's sorted, but it's interesting to look around and once you've found your place, um, like I said, save that little code and you can use it later. Yeah, because when you look, Fairfield inhabited place, great, I found me. Nope, World, Europe, Ireland, County Galway. That is not me. There's a lot of Fairfields, by the way, just FYI. Um, I've sometimes found with this that it's honestly easier to kind of go through the whole thing. Let me do it this way again. So if I go up to, I'll just pick anybody. Okay, United States. Let me start there. So I can do that little pyramid and open that all up as a nation. So let me go and look for Connecticut. That's going to be easier. Honestly, it doesn't look it. That's going to be easier in the long run. Um, let's see. Connecticut, yay, state. Okay, that is me. Awesome. Let me open that up. Should go by county next. Again, you get a lot of other things in there, like reservoirs and ponds and rivers and things like that. Britton Reservoir, Fairfield County. Yes, yay, there we are. Aspetuck, all the stuff in Fairfield County. We can keep going through Fairfield Inhabited Place. Finally. So now I'm going to take this ID here and copy it. Go back to this. I'll actually go back to Fairfield because I'm in here. Go into the geographic names. Just add another. Paste that in there, and it goes right to where it needs to be. As you see, and it pulls up Fairfield, Connect. Perfect. So sometimes it's just easier to do that and pull up the name. Sometimes things show up right away. You kind of have to play with it a little bit. We don't necessarily, I mean, this is good to add in anytime you have a directory like this. It's great. You don't necessarily have to do that because we do have that geography page in there that you're able to find things. But I just like the thesauri are great to have because it means everyone's using the same term in the same. So then I just have one of the little like post-it, computerized post-its that have that 2016859 that I can copy and paste every time, and it comes right up. So useful for folks that don't have some of those in there, like your place doesn't exist. And then you can also find names for things that you're not sure what it's actually called. Like if you're looking, you're like, is this called Maury's Pond or Maury Pond? No, it's Maury Pond. You can use that as the specific term.